Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is May the 4th, 2023 on the ancient moon calendar, 2024 on the ancient sun calendar. This is the day before Cinco de Mayo, which is where we will be assisting and helping our Olmec brothers and sisters to celebrate their own sovereign state. And this tomorrow is also a threefold celebration, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Article 3, Moorish American, Al-Moroccan court action. I am Sovereign Living Justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie. My free chosen sovereign appellation is Light Tajiri Bay. All are in capitis diminution nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are capit et corpus juris legalis, which is our statement that we are the lawful and legal natural head and body for our empire. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient empire state for Morocco. We're the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We're ancient Washington District for Columbia. We're the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Earth-wide Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. Today, we are exercising the law by our sovereign status, which is the original indigenous, natural, divine, sovereign, ancient, Article 3, living United States District for Columbia Court, and we are the sovereign fiduciaries, creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, possessors, and titled beneficiaries for this cause for action. We are peace, we are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby recognize ourselves. We hereby recognize ourselves. And once more, because it is a spell. We hereby recognize ourselves and accept our sovereign ascension. We've issued a universal creditor's bill for possession and custody over all land, all natural resources, all commerce, and all other property. We, the one true God nation, are not at war, and we hereby exercise all eternal, ancient, original, sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. And as we stated just momentarily, we are today being May the 4th. This is day 1 of our 3-day full moon fast. The moon was absolutely stunning, by the way, last night, and we're looking forward to seeing it again tonight. We took photos of the moon from last night, and at some point, maybe we'll share those. Tomorrow, being Cinco de Mayo, tomorrow is also the Islamic Muslim Holy Friday for us, and it is the full moon. Those 3, because we do things in 3s, those 3 powerful energies together are everything. They're worth demonstrating on those days, even if you're simply going to write up a document or you're going to think through and draft up your next demonstration. Today, tomorrow, and Saturday, and the 6th are very important days to do that. Additionally, we want to thank the subjects. Our subjects have decided that we're fasting May 4th, 5th, and 6th. They're going to be fasting May 7th through the 28th of May. So our subjects are going to do a 21-day fast to carry through the month of May, of course, in honor of our grand awakening. They're doing things that are just amazing as they watch us wake up and recognize and know and govern and rule. So with that being stated, Empress Aisha, I wanted to say something about something that you mentioned in our last Congressional Assembly. You mentioned that you asked the question about what do we do when Moors send Moor sovereign dolarium to do things and the Moor sovereign dolarium is returned back. The ancestors made it very clear that when the money is given back, that means that they're just simply making the payment that's due. So if we when we look back at the whole previous fiat system, why is it that we would work so hard for to receive fiat from corpses, and then they would turn around and say, okay, we gave you that, but we want it back in taxes, we want it back in debt, we want it back in being pulled over and given issued a ticket, a fake ticket. Why is it that it would be issued from one place and that same place be saying, okay, give it back? Well, Empress Aisha and all Moors, when you send Moor sovereign dolarium and they send it back, that means they're paying their debt in lawful money. And for that, we're grateful. We're grateful for the revelation of that as we began to just kind of go back over our Congressional Assembly in preparation for this one. There are several Moors who have received Moor sovereign dolarium back from the debtors in the exact amount that was necessary for them to pay their debt. So let's keep that in mind, Moors, as we're doing the things that we're doing. When you send Moor sovereign dolarium and they don't send it back, they're still acknowledging and recognizing the value and the worth of Moor sovereign dolarium simply by keeping it. So our commerce has already started on our land. We just have to recognize that it has. We've already begun collecting taxes from those who are the debtors. And for that, we're grateful. Yes, indeed. If you haven't received it back, I see there in the chat, then that's an acknowledgement that yes, it has been received and acknowledged, and it is real. And we're going to today add an additional. It's not really adding an additional step. There are 1,000,001 ways for us to be our sovereign selves on our own land. And we want to provide another perspective with regard to our tax collection, because we've already started collecting taxes. Empress Aisha's demonstration is actually an example of that. So, and then other Moors where you sent the dolarium and it has not been sent back, we've already begun collecting taxes. So with that being stated, we want to expand on our tax collection. And I am going to open up the meeting as well and take it out of lecture mode so that we can each unmute ourselves by *6. Just a moment. Let's see. So there was, in my studies, I had seen where some would do something called debt validation. Like they would go into a fake court and they would validate the debt and say, yes, this debt is real. But I never got to see what happened after that. Some would say, yes, the debt is real, and appoint someone else as the trustee, quote unquote, and whoever they appointed as the trustee would be responsible for paying that debt. That was an act to give us a hint about what we're doing and what we should be doing. Now, for those who say that we don't validate debt, I would just state, or for those who might be having some energy about what we're saying, I would just ask that you lend me your ear. Because as the ancestors were revealing it to me, I felt all kinds of pulling back saying, no, because we don't have any debt. This is going to prove that we don't have any debt. And that the debt should be paid by, well, it clarifies who's the debtor and who's the creditor by the way we do it. When we uncorrupt this process, this is going to be yet another way by which proper identification of the parties happens, and also it's going to validate our own money system even more so. Not that we need it, but we are using our own species to do the things that we're doing. So with that being stated, yes, Empress Aisha, my mind just grew some more after thinking over what you said and what happened. Indeed, we are very powerful and we don't realize it. So when something happens like that, it happens seemingly under the radar until we really think about what just really happened. See, they don't have anything to pay with. The debtors don't have anything to pay with. We actually have to give them something to pay us with. Because in our sleep, when we thought that we were, yes, indeed, Justice Akil, in our sleep, when we thought that we were the creator, when we thought that we were the debtors, we were just wondering, okay, where can I get some more of that from in order to pay this debt? Well, it was all coming from the same place that we were trying to pay. And so all we're doing is using our own system, using our own species, and acknowledging so that the land is continuing to be restored to lawfulness. So let us briefly show what we mean and what we're talking about, because I saw a little bit about this in a video, and it was being done by, of course, a modern European, and the ancestors actually said, you really need to watch this. So now, 15 United States Code 1692G, debt validation. And again, we are expanding on our governmental responsibility for tax collection. Justice Akil, have you done what you needed to do? Hopefully. I would like to go ahead and lock the meeting as well. Okay. Okay. So I'll put the link to what we're going to be looking at and discussing in the chat.
Only wanted
Just a moment. Just a moment. A little bit of distortion there coming from the lower energies. Okay. So now, this is actually how the exchange, the changing of the currencies happens. This is the process whereby the currency goes from fake fiat debt currency to credit and lawful currency, such as what we use. So it says here, and we'll just read a couple of these really quickly. Just one moment. Let me make sure. Okay. It says here, notice of debt. Within 5 days after the initial, and we're actually going to be restating these, by the way, because there is some things in here that we're going to change. Within 5 days after the initial communication with a consumer, in connection with the collection of any debt, a debt collector shall, unless the following information is contained in the initial communication or the consumer has paid the debt, shall send the consumer a written notice containing. And we know that whenever we see anything talking about a written notice, we do everything by affidavit first. Then we can do it by our living national corporate documents. Proper identification of the parties. We are not consumers. We're the creditors. So in writing, this is what should be sent whenever there is a debt and a debtor and a creditor. Someone has to be sending some things. So in order to notify the debtors that there is a debt, the amount of the debt. Now, as we're going through this more, please think about the things that you receive or that are sent to the corpses. Yes, the things that are sent to the corpses that we thought were being sent to us, and how and all we're going to be doing is restating. And we're going to show where restatement must be done. So in the written communication,
we can't wait to laugh at that British tart when she gets evicted.
The notice, the amount of the debt. This is in writing. The amount of the debt. So whenever we receive something, or the corpses send something to their corpse, note that everything they send is strictly for us to restate and claim the credit. So on those fraudulent documents, they will put the amount of the debt, the name of the creditor to whom the debt is owed, a statement that unless the consumer within 30 days after receipt of the notice disputes the validity of the debt or any portion thereof, the debt will be assumed to be valid by the debt collector. Number 4, a statement. There it is, that word, state, estate, state of mind, and statement. Heirs, inheritance. A statement that if the consumer notifies the debt collector in writing within the 30-day period that the debt or any portion thereof is disputed, the debt collector will obtain verification of the debt and a copy of a judgment against the consumer, and a copy of such verification or judgment will be mailed to the consumer by the debt collector. And number 5 is the part that we are most interested in. A statement. They keep pointing to the state. A statement that upon the consumer's written request within the 30-day period, the debt collector will provide the consumer with the name and address of the original creditor, if different from the current creditor. Anytime we see the word original, just go look in the mirror. They're talking, and we can look at each other. They're talking about us. Okay? And so when we receive those things on, wherever, from wherever they're coming from, for us to restate, we are to look at them, know who the original creditor is, and then we properly rebut and restate the process, whatever it is, because it's a credit and it's taxes that come to us. And you know what, Morris? We can literally restate the debt, send delarium with it for them to pay with, and then have them send the delarium back, and that will take care of the debt. And then we just cancel the debt. Period. Because
is that how Angel Bay is going to get her free conveyance tonight? We want to hear Angel Bay's demonstration on her free conveyance.
It's not a debt that we owe. It's not a debt that we owe. But the Lords are the only ones who can do anything positive regarding debt. So,
but you can't get you no Land Rover neither. Mark, Potty want a Land Rover?
The debtors are quite amusing sometimes. Let's see. So now let's look here at a little further at disputed debts. Look the word put up. The word disputed is actually mispronounced. It should be pronounced disputed. Just like the word deputy is mispronounced, it should be deputy. Why is that? Because it means that something is being taken from one place and put in its rightful place. That's why they call them deputies, deputees. Because they are the ones that, when the actual sheriff is not in place, a deputy is there to move things around, resources and things. It says here, disputed debts. That means debts that have not been put in the right place. If the consumer notifies the debt collector in writing within the 30-day period described in subsection A that the debt or any portion thereof is disputed, That means put in the wrong place. Or that the consumer requests the name and address of the original creditor. This is important. The debt collector shall cease collection of the debt or any disputed portion thereof until the debt collector obtains verification of the debt or a copy of a judgment or the name and address of the original creditor and a copy of such verification or judgment or name and address of the original creditor is mailed to the consumer by the debt collector. We could stop right there with all of this. Verification and validation are not the same thing. Therein lies the fraud. So, can someone state where there's someone who put something in there, they're pretending to be someone that they're not. There. Can someone provide the definition of the word verification and of the word validation so that we can look at the difference between the two? Anyone with a dictionary, you can just read straight out of the dictionary. *6, please, so that we can hear you. Islam. For the word verification, we'll do verification first. And then for those who have the dictionary online, if you want to put the definitions in the chat, we'll pull it straight from there and put it on the screen. Justice Sharif says validated is bona fide and certified. That's correct. But what does validated mean? What do you do when you validate something? Because we've heard of people attempting to authenticate fraudulent documents. And they feel that when they authenticate and signature are synonymous. They mean the same thing. When we sign something, we authenticate it, that it's real. And that's why we don't do that with fraudulent documents. And this is why we don't do that with fraudulent documents. So when there is a debt validation, we're not validating the debt, we're validating that the credit is due. And that's why restatement is so important. Yes, Empress Aisha says notarize. Yes, validate, authenticate, notarize. Notarize means denote that it is real. Islam.
Islam. Oh.
Islam, Empress.
Me, Shasha Ambe?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Verification. And this is Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, page 1732. Verification is confirmation of correctness, truth, or authenticity by affidavit, oath, or deposition. And then there's some case law. But there, I think that puts it right.
Read that one more time, Empress.
Okay, verification, confirmation of correctness, truth, or authenticity by affidavit, oath, or deposition. And that is McNamara versus Powell, blah, blah.
Yes. Now, validation.
I'm going to swing back over there and find it.
Because see, with that verification piece, they're throwing in a little bit of a funny, a loophole with that verification piece. It's a loophole. We'll talk about it. But validation.
Validation. Well, I don't see validation in Black's Law, but I can I have validate. I could check another dictionary, but validate.
Okay.
To test the validity of, to make valid, to confirm, to sanction, to affirm. So validation, the actual word is not in here. I can look in a different dictionary.
That's good. That's good. That's good. It's the fine line, the little nuances that we must know. The little foxes, when we know them,
Right.
everything is ours.
Validation. Let me find that in this. Isn't that interesting? So I'm looking in my dictionary again.
Mm-hmm.
It actually does not have, and this is a large, I don't know how old it is, dictionary, but anyway, let me just say it's got validate, and then when you go into validate, which is verb, and then you go down, and verb again, it's to make valid, substantiate, confirm, give legal force to, to give official sanction, confirmation, or approval to, as elected officials, election procedures, documents.
It's going to be funny when Sonia Martini gets dragged into a Jamaica court by her hair.
Just a moment. Clown.
Oh my.
Pure clownery, pure buffoonery. Go ahead, Empress.
I'm just giggling here. And then, let's see. Yeah, that's it. And then it goes validation, noun, validator, noun. So, there it is. It doesn't actually break down the word itself, but then again, the validation is the noun, the one who validates.
Yes. This 1828 Webster's does have validation. It's a noun. It says a making or declaring valid. It says proof or confirmation.
Yeah.
Now, Moors, listen. Y'all know we got this right. I love the words. Because verification, they use that word here where debt is concerned, because if we don't rebut properly and validate our creditor status, then they verify. All they're doing is looking at it and saying, well, they didn't give us, they didn't do anything according to the United States Code. They didn't say who the creditor was, so we'll just go ahead and pretend to be the creditor, and then we'll verify. Because, and you know what? You can verify anything. Verification means, I can write anything and say, I'm going to verify that this is on this paper, that these words are on it. It doesn't even it's not even saying that that is true. It's on the paper. That's a verification because it's on the paper. So yes, in our sleep we were bamboozled a little. There was an enactment of bamboozlement. Validation. To make valid. Who has the authority to validate anything? I don't care what it is. We do. No one else has the authority to validate anything. So when you're talking about foreigners pretending to do business as clerks, notaries, and all of that, still not valid. Not until you and I, the heirs, validate our documentation with our right red thumbprint. or our word or our writings or our signature or our autograph. So, for example, with foreclosure, and it doesn't even have to be foreclosure, it can be anything, it can be rent. Stating who the original creditor is causes there to be a cessation or a ceasing or a stopping of any attempts to collect a debt. Okay? So, again, here it is right here, disputed debts. That means debts that have been put in the wrong place. And the heirs have been made to think they're the debtor. And you can do that even if something is not late. It doesn't have to be disputed. It's just someone sent a piece of paper to their corpse, and their corpses are debtors. That's why we don't say we're the authorized representative of a corpse. We're not the authorized representative of the dead. We're not. We are the fiduciary, trustee, and attorneys in fact, and the original creditors for everything that's going on. And we've been stating that we're the creditors to all nations at earth. This is another way to prove that. So, for example, those who got mortgages in the all caps, that mortgage was placed in an all caps, that's their debtor. That's their debtor. And so the creditors have to restate the mortgage as a credit to them. And then when it says here name and address of original creditor, we know the original. See, that's a trick bag too. No creditor has a name. We have appellations. We have holy appellations. So when we're restating these documents, we're going to restate this, who the original creditor is. And when we state who the original creditor is and the mailing location, and here's the thing, we showed during our last Congressional Assembly about how the address should be stated, but let's go back and look at that really quickly. So this at the top in black is a debtor address. That's the wrong court. That's not even a court. It's not, because WA doesn't exist. This is the creditor's address. The creditor also has a mailing location. The creditor's mailing location is care of, and I can even put that in ancient English. So this is my mailing location, and there are some other things that go with it, such as the latitude and longitude and so on and so forth, those things. Okay, so when I'm doing my affidavits and I'm doing the affidavits in ancient English, you will see something similar to this, and I change it up sometimes because we can, because those affidavits are not talking to those who speak inferior dialect of English, debtor English, because there's a debtor English, there's an ancient English, there's a commercial English, there's a corporate English, there's a common English, there's an old English, there's an ancient English, all of that. There are many different dialects of English, and that can be verified. It can be verified by Google, because Google can't validate it, but they can verify it. So this is the proper address for the creditor. The creditor is on the land. Everything is spelled out, and the creditor does not have a zip code. And even more, and this is something that the ancestors showed us recently as well, that even with regard to something like 3/14th place, if we chose to do so, we could do it that way as well and just spell out 3/14th. We could spell out 911 as well. However we choose to state our mailing locations, we can do that. Okay? Because again, you're still talking about court. What court is it? Because we know addresses are a description of the court. So when I'm doing corporate documents and when I'm not responding, but restating documents, and I'm going to send those documents to subjects, we use language such as this. We'll put it this way. Even though we've shown in the past, Moors, that those in the subject status, it doesn't even really, as long as we're putting mailing locations and we're putting latitude and longitude, we can put the natural area code, we can write it in ancient English, it still comes back to us. We had that happen recently, where we have another, this one came in yesterday. This green return receipt came in yesterday, and it has our zip code thing on it. And this came in from, I don't know if you can see that, there. Now, and that was from February, and it just got here to point some things out to us as well. So valid, having Empress Shasha put the definition of valid, let's go ahead and collect that and put it on the screen. Now again, Morris, this is tax collection. This is saying we know we're the original creditors. And this is from Black's Law as well, Empress Shasha?
4th edition. And
indeed. Thank you, Empress.
Yeah.
Having legal strength or force, executed with proper formalities, incapable of being rightfully overthrown or set aside. Again, only the heirs can validate something. And that's why we've always stated to the heirs that it's not necessary to go to someone that was previously doing business as Secretary of State and have them authenticate or sign anything, because it's still not valid without your signature. Your autograph, rather. Your autograph is the validator. That is the validation. Your right red thumbprint is the seal. Seals that validity. So once we give proper notification, and what does proper notification of who the creditor is look like? Proper notification of who the creditor is, and everyone is aware of this. You know, we're looking at these things right here, and they keep talking about judgment this and judgment that and judgment this and judgment that. They say verification or judgment. Why do they say verification or judgment? They always say that throughout this whole thing, obtain verification or judgment. It's because the judgment, they can't issue the judgment. They were only enacting last era issuing verification. Okay, they can't issue a judgment, but the judgment is stronger. So our courts must speak regarding all validation of that we're the creditors, they're the debtors, and then we send them what they need to pay. And whether they send it back or not, the debt is taken care of because the Lord has given them what they need to take care of the debt, their debt. Can't use fiat to do that. Can't use fiat to do that. Can't do it. It's not going to work. Because it's fiat is not special. It's not species for the living. And that's why we pretended and enacted being dead is not even the right word. It doesn't even come out of my mouth right. It doesn't even feel right to say we even, us and dead in the same sentence doesn't make sense. A form of heresy. Justice Sharif, can you expand on what you put there? You said verification is a form of, is it hearsay or heresy, which is the same thing, by the way? Are you saying is hearsay or heresy? Hopefully the meeting is not in, yeah, right. Okay, it's not in lecture mode. Okay, he may not be able to unmute. So is that you, Justice Sharif? Okay, Islam. We will open the meeting for our Hawaii brothers and sisters to come in. Thank you in the chat for letting us know. We want as many heirs as possible to hear the God spells that they are fully authorized by their bloodline to cast and break Islam. So the Article 3 courts can validate that the debt is owed and that we are the original creditor. The court presents the restated debt as a credit to the creditor that is owed by the debtor. And number 3, the creditor can cancel the debt and complete the exchange by issuing acceptable proper species or issue a pay promise to end the debt. And we talked about what pay and promise really means. I was a little hesitant to put this here at the end of that, so I'm going to remove it temporarily because we could go for hours on expanding on the different ways to do this. the different ways of cleaning up our land, because that's really what's happening. Is we're forgiving our debtors. Okay, we're forgiving our debtors, but there's a way to do it so that the debt is properly forgiven. Forgive. That means you're giving something beforehand. So you're giving them the delarium to pay with beforehand, and all they have to do is they can keep it or they can return it, but their debt is paid by that.
I have a question, or really a statement, if I may.
Islam.
So on a situation where they were speaking to the all caps organization that they created as a fictional version of us. That's where I describe that entity. And they've said, okay, well, this one owes X amount of dollars in their fictional world. So what we're in essence doing, I just want to restate, I think what is obvious, but I want to restate it for my own sake. So we're literally canceling their side of the ledger, and we're retiring it with real lawful money, our delirium, because we are the real creditor.
Yes. When we say their side of the ledger, they really kind of don't have a side of the ledger.
Well, their pretend side of the ledger.
Yeah, well, and the reason I say they don't have a side of the ledger is because they never had anything to pay with in the first place.
And which by definition would mean it was never valid debt in the first place. Because it was fictional money. And the fact that because they were in a bankrupt status, everything was prepaid in the first place. But the responsibility to pay it, they couldn't pay it anyway because they had no money, meaning the so-called corporation government.
So here's the issue. When we go back and look at the 1954 and 56 and 52, right around in there. There are cases that were happening at that time. There were cases that were happening at that time, such as the case of the American nationals at Morocco, and also the International Court of Justice case regarding France and between France and the United States. And what they were talking about, where the United States was arguing, because see, we were enacting being a French protectorate. The United States was arguing that we cannot, we the heirs. They were arguing as if we were asleep and we needed their fiat. But they were saying that we didn't need to use Swiss francs, because we were going to be using Swiss francs, and we had used Swiss francs at one time. And they were arguing in the International Court of Justice, and Justice J. Jermaine Bay does a good job of explaining that particular case. And that is where, again, the United States was arguing to the court, quote unquote, this was an enactment. They were arguing to the court that because there's no money, that they could use the all caps to be a transmitting utility. Okay, and they wanted to use it as a transmitting utility instead of using francs, and that's actually what ended up, the enactment that ended up happening, is they were the all caps, and they were using all caps a little bit before then, but just one moment,
I was going to say, but not extensively or exclusively, because my birth certificate by the mid-60s, early to mid-60s, still had upper lower case. It wasn't all caps. They really
Right.
didn't enforce that fully until I think the late 70s, maybe 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when we talk and then because we did not say anything, because we didn't know, we were busy marching civil rights and things. Because we didn't say anything about that, our ancestors knew that when we woke up, we would remedy the debt. We can act like the debt doesn't exist, or we can remedy it.
You should be able to get that Land Rover then. If you don't have any debt, why don't you get that Land Rover?
From the earth. Energy doesn't leave Earth. Energy just changes form. And so the debt was our credit the whole time anyway. It was our credit. All we're doing is showing that we're competent to state how it's our credit. But we could not say that while we were enacting being under.
Pauline has proven that she's not competent. Pauline is not competent to get First Avenue.
Okay. We couldn't do that while we were enacting being under the United States. You can't claim to be a creditor when you're enacting being a co-debtor by using their transmitting utilities. They're all caps. So we don't use their all caps. We create our own. They don't want this information out there.
No, they don't.
They don't want the debt to go away. Because when the debt goes away, guess who else goes away?
They have to.
What else goes away? So these were all things that when you look back in the records, 1956, when there was an enactment of consular court closing.
That was on their side, the so-called corporation was saying, we don't need those, or they're obsolete. And I don't think that was... We weren't using
our own courts. Yeah. We were going to theirs, and they were rewarding heavily in fiat in their fake courts.
Right.
Around that time.
Used to it, and to further confirm the claim that nope, the estate is abandoned, it's dead, and all we got over here is our brand name: Negroes, black, colors, African American, slaves, chattel property, and that's the evidence of it, because nobody's alive over on the other side.
That's what they were stating. That's what they were saying,
and that's what we were proving by our sleepy-headedness. Okay.
We enacted that. Yeah, we enacted that.
Let's just be honest. That's what we did.
Yeah, we enacted that.
Yeah, but
and
now
we
wake up, we remedy.
Of course, competently. Thank you, Noble Phoenix. That's very profound. We can look in the 50s, right before all of us, were waking up and being brought into this dimension to win.
Speaking of that, I just have to say, I know for a fact I came here for this cause, for this reason.
Yes.
Because I never, as a child growing up, every time somebody called me black, I was like, no. I rejected that throughout all of school, all of it. And I never liked Negro, didn't understand what it meant, but I rejected all of it. And then when they came up with African American, it was like, no, I'm not two continents. And that was before I learned any of this stuff 10, 11, 12 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So just growing up, it was in my spirit, no, reject. That's not who I am. But I didn't know who I was. So I was always meant to search, find out, but the Most High basically let you sleep for a little while until you were ready, and it was your time to come. You'll have your coming out party. Okay,
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Number. Yeah. Have my coming out party.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Indeed. So, we are the Most High who set our time clock, and we said, okay, when we go down and make man in our image, man being the tools that we use, we're going to set the clock, and at this time we're going to wake up, and at that time we're going to wake up. So it's a wrap. We got this, and And like they used to say in church, ain't nobody mad but the devil. You know. So
I pity you, poor unfortunate souls in pain.
Ain't nobody mad. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. Islam.
I just wanted to interject that conversation with Noble Phoenix and you and all of us, of course, had the song Frère Jacques ringing in my head.
Yes.
Dormez-vous, sonnez les matines. You know, it just had that, and I mean, I have to go do some research now because Brother John, it's really Brother John, Brother Jacques, John, there's something resonating in my spirit, but that's what, I mean, I would really, I felt like.
And translate that for everyone. We used to sing it that same way. Frère Jacques, Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous. Yeah.
Sonnez les matines, ding, dang, dong,
ding, dang, dong. Yeah, we used to sing that in French class.
Yes. Brother John, Brother John, or Jacques, which is really John. It's Brother Jacques. Dormez-vous? Are you sleeping? You're sleeping. You're sleeping. Sonnez les matines. Ring the bells of morning. The bells of morning are ringing. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So,
evictions and foreclosures is all I see for you all. Evictions.
So I'm certain that who is John? Qui sont Jacques? You know, qui est Jean?
Yeah.
Jacques. So I'm going to do some research because my gut is telling me that, of course, he's related to us in some. That story, that nurturing.
Yes, indeed.
Is related. It's our story. So anyway, that's what just was binging in my head. So I wanted to say.
Yes. You know,
earlier about not being dead, the word sleeping, dormir, came into my head. So there's a connection. There's an absolute connection.
Yes, indeed. And dormir is dormant is a derivative thereof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hibernation. It's a form of hibernation. That's yeah. Anyway, I yield. I just had to
very beautiful. Thank you for that, Empress. You know, there's no nursery rhyme or anything. There's no song that exists that's not about us in some way.
Boy, goosebumps. And that's absolutely the truth.
And it doesn't matter who wrote them. It's all about us.
It's always.
There's no movie that was ever made that wasn't about us. Right. I was watching a movie the other day, and those who grew up in a Christian home like I did, you might remember this movie. The movie was called The Mark of the Beast, I think. I'll have to look back and see. But that movie was even about us where if we accepted that, there would be decapitation if you didn't accept the mark. You know, if you didn't take the social and all of that, in other words, if you did not accept their quote unquote state, then they would capitalize the stateless ones. They would capitalize them anyway, which is a decapitation, which is take off the head and then put a false head on them. Put a false head up there. A head that's not even the right species. To me, that was just, I was wondering, why am I even watching this? Because sometimes I do things and I consider it mindless so that my mind can rest a little. There's no such thing as a mindless anything, because our mind is going to make the connections and start putting things together, and before you know it, you're writing and you're researching and you're looking up words and all of that, but
that is so true, because as you're speaking of that, I'm seeing what's happening currently in the CGI and the fallen Babylon.
Yes.
Many of the characters, which is letters. Right?
Yes.
Of them are, they're all actors, but they have different heads. They have masks, but masks that appear to be full heads. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yes.
he was really talking about today.
Yes. Yes. And they've shown people taking those masks off, and the mask looks like a real person.
Exactly.
But then they take them off, and it's a different person.
Completely, sometimes a different species. I mean,
that's a different species. It's crazy.
Madness.
Yeah, it's. But to me, that means it's a wrap.
Absolutely.
They're really just saying all of this was an act. They were just acting. It was theater.
Yeah. But it is. Everything is theater. From war to the surgery.
Yes.
Everything is theater, isn't it?
They call it theater.
They call it theater, exactly.
Yep. Because that's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
And even in that same, along those same lines, Broadway theater. Mm-hmm. Broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. That means those actors that are acting, and I don't mean the ones on that one, I'm talking about the ones in war theater.
Yeah.
They called it Broadway for a reason. And they show all these, plays about the happy ignorant, the blissfully ignorant.
Yeah.
And everything is switched. All the identities are switched. And all of that. It's quite interesting.
It is.
As we continue to wake up, we are noticing that there is emphasis on, hey, Morris, this was just an act. They were just acting, But we're going to continue doing what we're doing so that those who are coming with us can just keep coming with us competently. They don't have to, their learning curve is going to be greatly made in their favor, because of all, just like our teachers have done for us. They shortened the time, because the time needed to be shortened. So where debt validation is concerned, all we're doing is saying we're the original creditor. We know that. And whoever it is that's sending that stuff is the debtor. They're just telling you they're the debtor. And we just state that, send the delarium. And the way that we do that is by affidavit. Whoever it is that's sending the debt, for example, and I do this every time without fail, for the most part. I didn't in the past because I didn't know to do it, but now I know to do it. For example, if a debt is sent, and let's say the debt comes from, I'll just use let me see. Let's say the debt came from King County. I'll just use that as an example. So then in my presentment, if there was, let's just say, a tax debt or something, in my presentment, I would take this logo because you can see here, right here at the top, this is the logo. So what I would do is take that logo, and I recently actually did this, but it wasn't for it was for a correspondence that I'm sending out. Just one moment. I took that particular logo, the King County, because it's not a real one. Theirs is not real. Just so that we're all clear, they're corpses. They're not real, and all we do is just restate everything. So when I send things out, because I know that I'm the real King County, I took the time to create a true King County logo. And I put this at the top of my documentation, my letterhead. So this would be considered our national letterhead for King County, because we're the living, real, true national King County and not a corporate King County. That's good, Justice Harrell. Indeed. So I would put this at the top of my letterhead, and then put the credit there, and restate everything properly. And that would go with a levy, a lien, and a fiduciary affidavit. A levy, a lien, and the lien is on our letterhead. The levy is on the Internal Revenue letterhead that we created. And then our fiduciary document it's on our letterhead, our government, Morse government letterhead. And there it is. And I do that for everything coming and going. I recreate, not recreate, but create the proper letterhead, the national letterhead, and I take a little more time with mine, but you don't have to take a whole lot of time to do it. Just make the logo, put some color in the logo that reflects who we are, and then state whatever it is that you're going to state, So I know that I am the King County Sheriff, and all Moors are the King County Sheriffs. All Moors are. I'm not the only one. All of us are. And so now what we're doing is we're moving forward with giving proper, I don't want to use the word enforcement. For some reason that word, just because it has the word force in it, we know we are the force. May the force be with us. We are the force. We know that. Maybe I'll just work through that energy that I'm having, because it is the right word. Where King County sheriffs are concerned, the real ones are the Moors. And then we can send notification to the subjects in the office of King County Sheriff and send some commands out. Yes, giving proper duty notice. Yes, indeed, Empress. stating what's going on, stating who's doing what. I'm still, just listening to what the ancestors have to say about the most peaceful and proper way to do these things. And so far, this is what they have given on speaking to the subjects in the office of sheriff, is letting them know that it comes from their boss, which is the Moors, and moving forward that way, because possession is now the thing. Do we need sheriffs for possession? No, not really, unless the process calls for that. And if the process calls for that, and we get to determine what the process is. If we decide that the process calls for that, then we go and do it. But everything is, we always have a court action that goes with our notifications and documentation. So for those who are doing things like doing domicile demonstrations and things like that, you're going to need to, it is proper protocol and proper process to notify. And for example, if I were going to do a writ for entry, if I was going to demonstrate a writ for entry, because writ for entry is the 14th great writ. We have our 13 great writs that our courts issue. The 14th great writ is a writ for entry that is given to sheriffs in times past, and for us it's Sharifian peace officers. And we can call ourselves sheriffs if we want to, because they actually misspelled and copied Sharifian, all of that. But if I were going to demonstrate a property, for example, I would notify properly using my King County letterhead, but I would also turn right around and go to and create a document just one moment. Let me grab this other logo. There is, my Federal Way logo. I don't have to go there to get that. I have that already. I would also get my Federal Way logo onto some documentation and do a corporate document notifying the subjects in the office of police and subjects in the office of mayor that this is happening on this date, etc. Now, what I would also do, because I know this is a test for us, our test is proper process, proper peaceful process. So when I send notification that on this date we're going to be gaining entry to this domicile, what I would do is I would pull up the manual, the sheriff's manual, and write out the protocol, the process that I'll be using for entry. That's what I would do. And put that on my corporate document here, showing that this is where the process comes from and this is how we're going to execute that process. In the past, whenever we sent something out or said that we were going to do things, the ancestors would always follow that up. Once we say it and we wait just a little while, the ancestors will send the proper process on how to do it and how to continue moving in that area. So when it comes to, for example, the building on First Avenue here at Federal Way Territory, we know that the building is ours. We know that. It's marked already and everything. We know it's ours. we didn't, what we wanted to do, not wanted, what we desired is to do the proper process of entry into the place. It is still marked vacant, and no one has moved on that place because we've properly claimed it. We know that. But now, when it comes to entry, we are knowing now that, okay, we notify the county, which is the sheriff, because we're the head of that. We're also the head of Federal Way Police Department because we're the chief for police. For the original indigenous people on the land, we're the chiefs and all of that. And then, aside from us on the land, is subjects. So we want to write out the process. Just put, for example, if I were to do a document stating that I'm going to go to that building and demonstrate entry, then I would say in my corporate document, of course, liens and everything will be on point. Liens and levies will be included in this documentation. But I would put, for example, I would say, to all whom these presents may come, the King County Sheriff, and I could spell it that way or this way. However we spell it, however we put it on our documentation, ministry will be gaining entry to the following property on Saturday, May, what would Saturday be? The 6th, 2023. And then I would put the mailing location, and we're going to put it as a land address. We have to know that. And then we would put latitude and longitude, whatever that may be. And when you put latitude and longitude, if it's 32, 42, 11 north, put right out north, and then put, 45, 45, 41, 42, 11 west. That's how you would note latitude and longitude. And then if you can get the natural area code, get it. If not, don't worry about it, as long as you have this and everything is written out. And then the process that is, let's see, the process that we, no, this is what we would say. According to the United States Sheriff's, and I would spell it this way, manual, page 43, section 2, the proper protocol for entry is, and then I would list 1, 2, 3, step 3, step 4, step 5, and step 6. And whatever those steps may be, notify all parties. Step 2, secure the, or whatever it is, that is what I would do to gain entry to a domicile or wherever. Ensure that the premises are unoccupied, things like that. You want to exercise all types of safety and caution and all of that, because it's the prudent and smart and juridical and jurisdictional thing to do. So for those Moors who are doing domicile demonstrations, you want to safely prepare your demonstrations and then properly notify. And again, if a place was occupied, you would do the things necessary to ensure that the place is not occupied. That takes time. Make time for that to happen. Just as we stated previously, and we demonstrated this, when we first went to the building on First Avenue, it was unlawfully occupied. There were some persons in there. Well, we videoed who was in there and all of that. And before we could finish that whole demonstration, we had to demonstrate that we really are who we said we are and we know about our courts. So we were detained and tested, and we stood because we're always going to stand. And then by the time the 10-day demonstration at the court POW, it was previously a jail, but we turned it into a court, an Article 3 court when we got there. Once we did the 10-day demonstration there, by the time we got out, the building was marked vacant. There was no one in it, and to this day, no one has been in there. And all it is the time. We're just taking the time to properly state the processes, assisting others along the way, sharing the information, and now we have this part of the process where we notify, we do the proper protocols, and we talked about this before. Whatever the manual says, and then we may even add a few of our own demonstrations to the protocol. Protocols will be changed and edited and restated properly. But that is how the taking of the land is accomplished. So when you talk about takings, the takings clause, the Fifth Amendment, even when it comes to, for example, the building down the street, well, that building is for public use. That's what, we didn't choose a 10,000 square foot domicile to demonstrate. We chose something that the people can use. And so the Fifth Amendment, we stated that nothing can be made private and everything belongs to the public unless we state otherwise. And that statement happens with proper protocols and processes. And so as we continue to look through and do the study, and we looked at sheriff's manuals 2 and 3 years ago, 4 years ago. This is where all of that is coming together. So everything that we started looking at some years back, the ancestors are saying, okay, start bringing everything together. Start simplifying all that you know and bringing it together so that proper claiming and possession can take place, so that there's no, so that the abundance manifests. Let's say that, so that the abundance manifests. Everything already belongs to us. It's the proper protocols and processes that we are to continue to demonstrate. And so for those who demonstrated in the past, they can look at these protocols and processes. And I will say this too, Morris, as I'm looking at this process, you know, the programming is saying, well, don't you need, 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 40 or 50 Moors to do that? My spirit says, no, I don't. I can gain entry to a place, me alone, with the proper protocols and not have to worry about anything happening crazy. Additionally, let me say this too. For example, if you're going to do a domicile demonstration, the domiciles, in the windows of the domiciles, and that's why you have to do a perimeter check before you enter. This is part of the protocols from our reading of the manuals, knowing what we know about safety and things like that. You do a perimeter check before you enter, because in some cases, there have been unhoused persons who know that a place is empty and they move in, in a very scanty way. You do a perimeter check before you go in, and if there are signs of maybe ones being in there, you do want to announce before you go in. You also want to check the windows, because there's always going to be, whenever there is a security system, generally there will be a sticker in the window that says, this home protected by so-and-so and so-and-so security systems or whatever. And so you want to do that check, and then before you gain entry, you want to go ahead and notify. If you see one of those stickers, go back. Take the time to go back, get your corporate letterhead, and send them notification. And you can just drop that notification in the mail. But see, once you notify the subjects in the Office of Police and the subjects in the Office of Sheriff, once you notify them, they're not going to come anyway if an alarm goes off. Again, we want to take our time and do things a particular way. Anyone who is accessing a domicile, whether it be realtors or anyone, they do the due diligence first. They go and check it out really quickly, and then go back, and whatever paperwork they need, they get their paperwork sent out, and then they wait a little while, and then they go back again, and they make sure the paperwork has been received by checking the tracking. You don't have to necessarily pick up the phone and call anyone. You can just check the tracking to see that it's been received, and because everyone knows we're accessing. Everyone knows that, but we must do our own due diligence. And whatever your spirit says, however your spirit says to demonstrate that, demonstrate it. So, if there was a security company of some kind, I'll just say, let me go here first. I'll just pick the first one or two that comes up. Okay. So then I would look at the logo and restate the logo. So really, to restate logo is very simple, and we've shown you this previously. We would take the logo and make it the national ADT. And because we don't do abbreviations and acronyms and things, when we restate the logo, we would put on there what ADT stands for. So let's just see. Let me share with you what I'm doing here. Just a moment. Let me just share with you really quickly what we're doing here with this ADT part. Okay. I would just restate this logo and then put in what ADT stands for, because it may not even mean the same thing for us as it means for someone else. These letters would be in red, so I would take the blue. Just one moment. I would take the blue. Here, let's get this. I would make it blue. And these blues don't really match. When I'm doing logos, I take the time to make it look a little, make it match a little more, or change it altogether. And then I would put in ADT this way. That's a little bit huge. Here, let's move this up. Make it a little smaller. And again, I'm just showing you, the basic, how we would do it basically when we're redoing, when we're creating the national logos. We would put that there first, and then here, just a second, let me make this smaller. And again, we would just make it, and then what we would do is come behind that and under here put whatever the ADT part stands for, whatever that means to us. All
Islam, Empress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ADT has quite a history. It was a district telegraph delivery company it became American District Telegraph.
Really?
Yeah, and then it was incorporated into Western Union in 1901, American Telephone and Telegraph Company. It was
wow.
In 1964, it was found to be a monopoly and restraint of trade. It has quite a history, this ADT. I mean, that's just, yeah.
You know what? They all do have, when you start looking at the history of these places, and you can see where a lot of the corporate fraud and all of that stuff happened. And there's always going to be, because AT&T, when you mentioned AT&T, American Telegraph and Telephone, yeah.
Right.
That our ancestors started that. Our ancestors started that.
Well, and that's interesting because it came under the control in 1909. Originally, it was a company. It was a gold stocks, and it was created in 1863. Edward Callahan invented a stock ticker.
1863?
1863.
Which is before 1871. So
Yes.
that was before they were even a thing.
Exactly. And it formed the Gold and Stock Telegraph Company in 1867 to exploit the technology. It has a who would have thunk it?
Yeah, our ancestors did all of that. They did all of that.
What's the original location?
Let me see. Formerly, it was the court. Well, its head office is Boca Raton, Florida, right now. Let me see.
Land of Flowers.
What's that? Land of Flowers, exactly. I'm looking to see. Wow, I don't see that.
And then when you look at AT&T and the history there,
exactly,
you're going to see that goes way back, so far back that their writings don't even cover how far back, because that had everything to do with the grid lines, the ley lines, the communication grid that we had in place for thousands and thousands of years. This stuff is not new.
Now, Empress, I don't see it saying about where it's located currently, Boca Raton, but I haven't been able to locate its original.
If we dug a little more, Empress, it'll come up. We would see that information if we took, because those are rabbit holes that we go down during our study.
Yeah.
And end up looking at ourselves.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you for that, Empresses, both. When we did the Al-Moroccan American Exchange, AT&T was one of the companies that we added to our exchange to bring it back to where it started. Mm-hmm. And that's why we did those things, is to properly proclaim that all of that stuff belongs to the Moors. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. We're still here.
May I add something?
Yes.
Before I yield and go away.
Indeed.
You said about the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Alice in Wonderland. The White Rabbit. Yesterday, I came across something. I was prompted to look up the meaning of Alice. Alice means nobility, of a noble family. I was like, hello. And that's one of my favorite books. But anyway, this whole past few years, I said I had gone down the rabbit hole. And you mentioned the rabbit hole, so I just had to share that. But I'll tell you, it's something else. But
there's no movie and no play and no song that's ever been made that wasn't about us.
Not at all.
Period. They're all about the Moors, because this is an exercise in our grand rising, all of it.
Absolutely. And every day there's something new.
Yeah.
Anyway, I yield.
Thank you. Beautiful information, Empress Shasha. You always come with the fire. Indeed. I love it. So as we, notifying Islam, Empress.
This is just kind of a little bit of twist here, but it has to do with mortgages. I had gotten an email from someone today, and I think they were a Moor too, that you can file a quietening of title with the court and then record a lispendis at the deeds office, and they say it would stop a foreclosure in its tracks. Now, I did it years ago, but I would have to go back and refresh myself on it. I just wanted to throw it out there in case anybody had, an emergency. They say this can be done, right away.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you for that, Empress. Did it work for you years ago when you did it?
Partially. I was working and I didn't have time to really stick with it like I should have.
Mm-hmm.
But I did get some results.
Yeah. So that's a great process. Also, again, there's 1,000,001 ways for us to be ourselves on our land.
Right.
Let's pit Islam.
Could you restate what she said? Because I didn't hear her clearly.
Go ahead, Empress. Restate once more, Empress Aisha.
You could file a quietening of title with the court and then record the lispendis at the deeds office. And this is supposed to immediately put a freeze on the sale where they're trying to foreclose on your property. It's supposed to stop it like in its track. And I haven't even had time to read all the email, but it was a refreshment for me because I had dealt with it years ago.
So a quietening of title, and then that's what she said, a quietening of title, file that with the court.
Right.
And record a lispendis at the recorder of deeds.
Right.
So
they would still have to, kind of find the definitions and do their own research because it's been a while since I did it and I don't remember all of the details.
Yes. So here's what I know about a little bit of what I know about this and what we've all been discussing is there is a title at issue.
Right.
And so, a restatement of the title and see, we know they don't have title, they have deeds. And that's why in our last Congressional Assembly, we talked about restating the deed.
Okay.
Same thing. And when they say quietening of title, we looked up the word quiet. Quiet and quit mean the same thing. And what they're saying when they say quietening of the title, they're saying that if the original title holder is not saying anything, then they can continue that corporate activity.
Okay. Gotcha.
Quiet and quit mean the same thing.
Okay.
And then recording the lispendis. Lispendis is like the nom de guerre.
Okay.
It's similar to the nom de guerre, lispendis. Anything filed at the recorder of deeds is going to, and we're saying recorder of deeds knowing that we're the recorder of deeds.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing about that, and this is why 100% remedy was not really obtained, and even in the past with Moores, we were not getting 100% remedy because we didn't know that we're the court. Our court has to rule first.
Okay.
And then we notify the others of what you're saying. So what you're saying is correct in terms of notification. The subjects in the office of have to be notified that things have been, that the title is properly proclaimed, because they were saying titles were abandoned and things like that.
Right. Well, the person that did this, they were filing it in the regular courts. They didn't start out in the Article 3 court. They probably wasn't aware that they should have done it the other way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that is exactly why we're here.
Right. So when things doesn't work in the regular court, I mean, what knowledge you do not have, it really kind of hurts you.
Yes, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and that's why we're moving as quickly as we've been moving on things.
Right.
because ignorance of the law is no excuse. And as far as our ancestors are concerned, our only priority is securing of our estate. We don't have time for anything else.
Right.
You know? So you're absolutely right, Empress. I mean, these processes and things, they work. We do have to be the right court. We do have to be the right court and then notify, because ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now, fortunately, our ancestors have made it so that we're given time and grace.
Right.
And we're our ancestors' return. We're giving that to ourselves simply by having these studies and these congressional assemblies and ruling on things and proving and demonstrating that we're the court. That's what's causing the whole process of everything that had to do with the last era to screech to a halt.
Okay.
So yeah, ignorance is, they didn't really want to hear anything about the Moors don't know, because they know we do know.
It's a matter of applying what you know.
Yes, and staying up above.
Right.
And not descending into subject status.
All right now.
Yeah. We have to stay up.
Gotcha.
Stay the head.
I just thought I would share that for those that wanted to do the study on it.
Yes, that's a beautiful study. We're looking at all processes. That's beautiful. Very beautiful, Empress. Thank you for that wisdom.
You're welcome.
Your wisdom is honored here, Empress.
Thank you.
Indeed. So, I believe that is all we have for this particular Congressional Assembly. Again, do your corporate documents, and the corporate documents are usually only one page. It's just stating what's happening, and then always with the fiduciary affidavit, our government fiduciary affidavit. And on every one of our affidavits, Morris, we should always state that we are the original creditor. Let me show you really quickly. There was someone who had a question, I believe, or a comment or some wisdom.
Empress Cynthia. In the notification process, should there be some type of a notice on the actual physical land that you're going to acquire?
Yes, we should put something up, a notification on the front. And again, that's part of the perimeter check.
Okay.
For the first time out, you do a perimeter check. And again, perimeter checks to be done safely and properly there, we first go and knock and announce, Even if we think the place is empty or unoccupied, we knock and announce, and then we place the document up there, the documentation. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you, Empress, for that. We demonstrated that with the building down the way, where we posted paperwork up on the building. And we did that, and it's been about a year and a half, more than a year and a half since we first did that. And as we're learning, or remembering rather, how to govern, the ancestors, all of that stuff is still on the public record. It's still valid. Still valid.
So just a little clarity, just a little bit of clarity. When you're sending out these documents, I may have asked this question before, asked for clarity. But say, for instance, you're dealing with the IRS. You send it to the national IRS.
Mm-hmm.
But then do you also send it to the Well, the national would be IR.
Yes.
And the one that was communicating with me would be IRS. So would I have to notify both of them?
So, Empress, know that you are the Internal Revenue. Would you send it to this place here, like here on the screen, Ogden, Utah? And yes, do that. Yes, because that's the real one. The
Right.
other one, you're not really talking to them, and they're not talking to you.
Gotcha. Okay. I understand. I understand.
Indeed, Empress. So what we did here, this is a levy on Cash App. Okay, because our last Congressional Assembly, we stated that we were going to send a Cash App out, some credits out, because some random someone that I've never had any dealings with or heard of or anything sent a request. And I'm assuming that they watch our videos and know who we are and know that we have the resources.
Mm-hmm.
And so we stated that we were going to send out the $5,000 that they requested, but they're going to have to demonstrate that they can receive, that they have the proper transmitting utilities to receive the $5,000.
All right now.
So what we did was a levy here on Cash App Inc. And notice the difference in the addresses. This is the fraudulent false debtor address, and this is the true address.
Okay.
And so, Empress, when you're talking about the Internal Revenue, this is, we're speaking to ourselves and to others who are into our system.
Right.
And our system will do the same thing that we have been doing. Our system will notify the subjects.
Okay.
That's what we've been doing too.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
When we did this, we stated, and this we just did recently, but we stated here, the debtor is levied, and this is the sentence that I wanted to call your attention to. The creditor stated above is the original creditor.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what you put on all of your documentation, that you are the original creditor. And when we are doing fiduciary duties, we're doing fiduciary duties in the favor of all Moors. So I am not the only creditor. I'm the fiduciary, trustee, attorney, in fact, but so are all Moors. So we're not doing a grab just for ourselves. That's why we hold those offices. That's why we are those offices. Those offices are for our nation.
Okay.
And for us. So then we looked up, this says Jack Dorsey doing business as Cash App Inc. It was someone else, and that other person was recently met his demise.
Right.
And so we went to the parent, quote unquote, parent company, and pulled the CEO from there.
Okay.
So Morris, when things happen, we just make the adjustment and keep on moving.
Gotcha.
Indeed. So with that being stated, this is the rest of this levy. And again, $100 million for each more, as it states right here. Due to stated debtors' inability to pay the stated debt, all property to include email addresses and all other accounts are hereby placed in the possession and custody of and for the original indigenous, ancient sovereign people who are the United States for America, possessing custodians and their internal revenue. This congressional affidavit is effective immediately upon all debtors, agents, principals, heirs, assigns, and any and all derivative debtors thereof. Our honor. Okay, so again, when we demonstrate, we're demonstrating for our government, our state, for all,
Gotcha.
Islam. So that's how we do it. Let's see, where came from is it Cash App number. Sheikh Klein, I'm not sure I understand your question. Where? Oh, the EIN. Yes, that is the EIN for Cash App. And what we did was we restated that. Here, the EIN, when you see it in black with a minus sign, that's a debtor EIN. And then when you see it in blue without the minus sign, that's a creditor account number.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. So, we're just, what we're doing is becoming far more stealth with our processes, with our documentation, because we know that, when we demonstrate the processes in their entirety, we get the result that we are demonstrating to receive.
Right.
And that's what this is all about, is about us demonstrating and continuing to move forward as we demonstrate, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, Morris, this Universal Commercial Code 1 lien affidavit dated August 3rd, 2018 with this identifier number. Let me go back. Oops. I moved the 2018. Let me put it back to is for all of us to use. This is making reference to the lien on the United States Corporation Company that we did at that time. And the video for that is on YouTube from way back then, where we were discussing liens and things like that, and stating that we had that our nation had done a lien on the debtors. And all we're doing now, Morris, is just moving forward with all the things we stated we were going to do, which is take possession of everything, but doing it properly and safely, where Moors are safe on their own land, doing things competently. Islam. Everyone is
Islam.
Oh, Islam, Empress.
That statement you just made about the amount passed through and using the lien date from 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So that is basically, that was the lien that shut the whole thing down. So every leg, every arm, every piece. So that, in fact, the liens that we have done separately beyond, currently and everything else, all are swallowed up in that 2018 date. And, do we need to use the dates of current liens that we use, or this one just takes care of everything, no matter?
All law is specific.
Okay.
So we were speaking specifically to that.
Okay.
Because Cash App, quote unquote, was created under that. However, we still have liens out on Cash App.
Correct. And that was my question. So, because I have a lien on Cash App too.
Yes.
It's obviously much more recent than this date. But
Yes, and that needed to happen, Empress. You needed to speak on the public, not needed. You desired. It is the will of our ancestors that we speak, that they speak through us with regard to specification as to who we're specifically speaking to and what resource we're raising from the,
Right.
nationalizing and naturalizing.
Okay. I get it. I absolutely understand.
And our strength is in our numbers. That's the most exciting part of that.
Exactly. It's like another boot, Hello, boot in your body.
It is another boot on the ground. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all with love,
Yes, of course. We again, it's our documentation. It is our pen.
It is our pen, exactly.
And go ahead, Empress.
It's just me again. The little tangent. Speaking of boots, Louisiana is referred to as the boot. Now, it's a very interesting. I digress. My brain's just gone off but the whole Louisiana Purchase and anyway. But
yeah.
There's yeah. So
because
anyway,
Louisiana is shaped like a boot,
yeah.
but so is France, and we got to remember that's related.
Two boots, 2 feet, two boots.
That's it.
But my brain works like that. But anyway, yeah. Okay, so that clarifies completely for me. Thank you.
Yes. Our brains are supposed to work. They're supposed to pull everything together and see that there are no coincidences and that everything is all in our favor. Everything is in our favor. Without, there's nothing that is not in our favor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The tree.
And
tree, the boot, the head, the hair, the neck, that's, again, I'm seeing that every, limb and from everything. So, yeah. Anyway, I yield. So, but, yeah.
Yep. Capit et corpus.
Yes.
Head and body. We are the all. Yes.
And
that's the temple.
That's the temple. That's the tree. That's life. That's everything. That's
Yeah. Our ancestors did not forget anything when it came to us. They remember all. They didn't forget anything.
Yeah.
And they gave us all of that. They just keep letting it come out of us all together. When each one of us that does a lien secures, further secures, and our estate is not insecure, it's secured. But the more of us that are awake and competent and passing the information on, that means that our heirs and our grand heirs and our great grand heirs, that means that the empire lives on. That's why we agreed to come here, to make sure that our empire lives forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does. She does.
She does.
She does.
She there.
Indeed. Info shared on Cash App. Is it now on Square D platform? What's being used by Cash App has been removed. They're no longer operating as a court. It's not Square, Justice Darius. I believe it's Block. It's called Block Inc. Block Inc. is the parent company for our nationalized, and we just call it Block. We don't call it the same thing they call it. We call it Block. That you can file a quitting of title with the court and record a list in this affidavit. Yeah. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Empress Aisha. Justice Morpheus, that's a testament. Justice Morpheus put in the chat, he has a lien and other sovereign documents toward the de facto mortgage company 2 years ago and finally got a 1099 a couple of days ago. He said he's still in his domicile and he used his Article 3 court from the beginning and present. He's processing a levy in the territory, and yeah, that's a testament, another testament. Justice Morpheus, we honor your work, Justice Morpheus. Thank you for all that you're doing to continue to demonstrate that our nation reigns on the land. Yeah. Our ancestors, once we start demonstrating, our ancestors will give us the time to walk right into our vast estate and just possess. They will do that. They will do that.
So is he the person that you said at the beginning that had a testimony for today?
No, he's not. Justice Onlango has a testament.
Yeah, right.
Justice Onlango, are you, let's see. Let me see if Justice Onlango is still here. Yes, he's still here. Justice Onlango.
Yes,
did you want to give your testament? Thank you, Empress Aisha. Justice Onlango, you were supposed to remind me.
Yes, I had a beautiful experience last week.
Speak up just a little bit louder so we can hear you really clear.
I had a beautiful experience last week, Wednesday. I wanted to share it with you all, but the way the call went, I did not. I went on a street that I should not have gone on at that time, but I was not aware. And a policy enforcer pulled me over, and just before he came to my conveyance, I said to him that I gave him my appellation and who I am, and asked him to see who he is, which he did. I let him know that no Trinidad and Tobago citizen has any jurisdiction over me or my conveyance. Well, he repeated himself that he wanted my driver's license and my insurance. And when he repeated, of course, I repeated again to him. Long story short, he called for backups, and more policy enforcers came. I repeated myself, let them know who I was. But of course, I had a travel document in the form of a plastic type ID, and I showed them it. They looked at it. They checked it out, and there's a group of people that they call traffic branch officers. They dress in a special outfit, and they came as well. And they, of course, they tried to trick me, asking me, well, how did I get here? Did I drive? I said, I am not a driver. I am a traveler, and all of that. And they deliberated for a period of time. I sat in my car. I saw them. They came together, and they were discussing. And the officers, more officers came with large guns and all of that. And they tried their best to get me to say what they want me to say, and I would not. I stood on my square, let them know who I am, and of course, eventually they came back, they gave me my travel document, and said to me, "Have a good day, sir."
Justice Onlango, that is a beautiful testament. Even with all of those.
I looked for listen, there were about 8 of them. Yeah?
Wow.
Listen, I look forward to this day when it would have come.
Yes.
I've been listening to you since 2018, I think it is. And I look forward to the day when I would have my opportunity to do my demonstration.
Yeah.
And you always say demonstrate based on your level of understanding.
Yes.
And I am so glad that I've been listening and taking my notes. And I tell you, peacefully, I did not shout at them. I didn't have to be rude. I just speak to them, stood on my square.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had to let me go my way.
Wow.
So
You know, Justice Onlongo, I will say this: when we first began to connect with one another via this Congress, these congressional assemblies, I did hear some fear in your voice, you know, and I just, you know, anytime I hear that with Moors, it touches my heart, and so I'm really glad to hear that you used broken record technique by just repeating, just repeating who you really are. I don't care how, and they were literally that was literally a fake court, and a whole fake jury, and they still couldn't do nothing with you but let you go on your own land.
You ever see policy enforcers looking as if they don't know what to do? While they were deliberating, I went to them and I asked, can I get your name and your badge number, please? And, well, of course, I spoke to the one that pulled me over, and the one who was senior to him said, okay, I will give you my name and my number. And of course he did, and all of that. But the point is, they were in a mess. You know, they were like, oh my God, how can we get this man to say what we want him to say? And I won't. And I'm so glad that my time came. And it.
I'm glad too, Justice Onlongo, that you got to see how powerful you are.
Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah. You know, what you saw, what you were witnessing was war among them. You were at peace. Confusion and war is the same thing. When you look up the word war, it will say confusion.
Confusion, yeah.
They were warring among themselves, and because you did not war, the ancestors stepped in and said, we'll war for you.
Yeah.
They do it every time. I'm telling you, they do it every time without fail. When we're peaceful, our ancestors swoop through and have folks looking like the Three Stooges. And I'm not saying they look like the Three Stooges. I'm just saying it just looks that way sometimes, because I've seen it before, and it's interesting to see.
Well, the senior policy enforcer said, I know about you Morrison. You think this is Facebook or something, you know? And I have all the time in the world. They are paying me to do this and all of that. And I calmly said, I do not understand. And I did it because
that's good.
I understand the use of the word understand. You know, so I refuse to say I understand. I said I do not understand.
That's perfect. Because we don't stand under anything they say.
Yep. So
that's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Justice Onlongo.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Listen, we got this, Morris. All we have to do is broken record technique. You know, even if you don't know a whole lot of things to say, repeat. I did it for 10 days. 10 days I repeated the same thing, the court action language over and over. 10 days. So, you know, all we have to do is be ourselves. Be ourselves and determine that no matter what, Because, see, a lot of times when they're doing all of that with, like, calling for backup and calling all of this and calling all of that, those are fear tactics. But if we're not at war, what are we afraid of? Nothing. Nothing. We just state who we are and keep it moving. Very beautiful. Well, we can actually just, we can go ahead and adjourn now with that because let's see. Yes, indeed, in the chat. Indeed. I'm trying to make sure that I did not miss anything in the chat. Did I miss anything? No. Thank you also, Justice Morpheus, for your testament as well in the chat. Listen, we got this. We just have to keep, first of all, we have to keep testamenting. And we say testamenting because it's a test of our mental and we keep passing. And as long as we keep talking about it with each other and putting it out there, it's casting and breaking spells like it should. So let's keep doing that. You said if you have WhatsApp, you can send that to me, Empress Denorcia. With that being stated, we will go ahead and adjourn until Sunday. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Islam. Peace and grand rising.
Islam. Peace and love.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Total gratitude.
Love. Understand.
Islam Moors, grand evening.
Islam Moors, grand evening.
Islam indeed.